Survivor Worlds Apart premiered on February 25, 2015, as 18 new castaways were split up into 3 tribes of 6, based on their occupations and views on life, with yellow being the white collars, red being the no collars, and blue being the blue collars. The 3 tribes were immediately asked to choose 2 people to make a decision for their tribe in private. So and Hakeem were chosen for the white collars, Mike and Dan for blue, and Will and Jen for no collar. The pairs were given the choice to either choose a big bag of beans for their tribe, or a smaller bag with a clue to the idol. While the no and blue collars played it safe, Hakeem pushed hard for So to take the bag with a clue, to which she ultimately accepted. But their story immediately raised eyebrows from their teammates when they returned, putting them at the bottom. And in a bit of irony, neither of them would even find the idol anyway, as Carolyn would be the one to find the white collar's idol despite not having a clue. On the other tribes, bickering began to occur as Dan got into it with the females on the blue collars, but luckily for him, he was able to bond with Mike, who was the unofficial leader of the tribe. On the no collars, Vince and Jen formed an alliance, only for Jen to waver after Vince threatened her about being in the Joe, who he was severely jealous of. At the immunity challenge, Shireen blew it big time for the white collars, sending them to the first tribal council of Worlds Apart. Despite Shireen being the one that cost them the challenge, her name wasn't on the chopping block, as it was between So and Carolyn, as the two hadn't trusted each other since hour 1. In the end, the majority simply couldn't trust Hakeem and So, and had to break them up, with So being the weakling target, going home in a 4-2 vote.
So, the tribe has spoken.
Episode 2 now, one of the more underrated pre-merge episodes in Survivor history, and it was mostly due to all the antics happening on the no-collar tribe. Jen and Holly tried to get to know Nina, but her deafness made this an issue, and when the two went swimming without her, this caused her to go off on them in frustration. We then saw Vince further his one-sided rivalry with Joe, saying his antics around camp were hurting the tribe. With all this tension, this caused the young side of Joe, Holly, and Jen to form an alliance, with Vince and Nina pulling in fellow older player Will to go up against their rivals. At the immediate challenge, no-collar lost, in large part due to Will's struggles in the water. However, Will found himself in the middle heading in the tribal, as the young ones planned to use him to split the votes on Nina and Vince, with Nina being their target, while Vince and Nina wanted him to side with them to vote out Jen, which would take her out in a 3-2-1 vote, and give them the majority. But essentially out of nowhere, right before tribal, Nina told Will about Vince's concerns about him being a weak link going forward. So at tribal, despite it initially looking like it would be either Nina or Jen, Will used his vote to put an extra 3rd vote on Vince, who he now trusted the least, and thus, the coconut vendor was blindsided in a 3-2-1 vote.
Second person voted out a white collar versus blue collar versus no collar. Vince, need to bring me your torch. Vince, the tribe has spoken.
Will's self-motivated move unsurprisingly backfired, as he was now on the bottom with Nina, and was even seen as more threatening by the majority after he went away from the planned split votes. On white collars, Shireen began to annoy her tribe with her outlandish behavior, and despite Hakeem being the outsider, Tyler began to wonder if Hakeem would be a good shield for him in the future, and that the next vote they should take out the annoying Shireen. On the blue collar tribe, alliances were still all over the place, as while the women were tight, the men went back and forth and not only annoying the woman, but each other as well, as Dan continued to be Dan, Mike was constantly harping on the tribe for the lack of work ethic, and Rodney was obviously a big-time personality, who even made fun of Mike for his religious beliefs. At the immediate challenge, no collars lost once again, leaving Nina and Will on the chopping block. Despite Will proving to be schemish, the young one simply couldn't work with Nina, sending her home over Will in a 3-2 vote.
Nina, the tribe has spoken.
In the first reward challenge of the season, the no and white colors would win, with the no colors earning hens and a rooster, while the white colors would receive 10 eggs. However, with Jen being a vegetarian, she wasn't down to kill the hens or roosters for food, so while the other 3 feasted, she used this as an opportunity to look for an idol, and indeed found it. During the challenge, Kelly got hit hard in the face by a platform, which required stitches. However, she earned massive respect from Mike after she recovered, affirming their alliance. At the immediate challenge, blue colors once again lost, sending them to their first tribal council. After Rodney blew up on the girls, saying they needed to be held to a higher standard, this officially made him the target for the woman. However, the guys simply felt they had to stick together, with their target being Lindsay. Kelly was a swing vote, as she could side with the girls to take out Rodney in a 3-2-1 vote, or split the votes with the guys on Lindsay and Sierra. In the end, despite the comments from Dan, and specifically Rodney, Kelly's connection with Mike made her want to stay loyal to his wishes, and thus, she sided with the guys to split the vote, with Lindsay being sent home on the revote.
Lindsay, the tribe has spoken.
Episode 5 begins with a tribe swap, as the tribes went from 3 to 2, with the new blue collar tribe, now officially being called Eskameka, consisting of Dan, Mike, Rodney, Sierra, Hakeem, Tyler, and Joe, while the new no collar tribe, now called Nagarote, was much weaker, as their members were Holly, Jen, Will, Carolyn, Max, Shireen, and Kelly. The tribes immediately competed for reward, with Eskameka showing their on-paper dominance right away, winning kitchen supplies and sausage. On Nagarote, both sides of 3 campaigned for Kelly's vote, as she was obviously seen as a swing vote between the no collars and white collars. However, Shireen and her behavior once again began to annoy her new tribe primates, while Max became perceived as selfish when he stuck his feet into the tribe's cooking pot after getting stung by a stingray. On Escameca, the 3 blue-collar men were scared that Sierra would flip on them after they left her on the outs at the previous vote, with Dan making things even worse after approaching her in an attempt to make amends. But luckily for the trio, Rodney was able to bring in Hakeem to their side as the bros bonded over bro-ish things. At the immunity challenge, Escameca came out on top, sending Nagarote to their first tribal council after the swap. The White Collars campaigned to Kelly to go for Will due to his weakness in the challenges, and Kelly was originally down for this. However, Carolyn, who was sick of Shireen just like everyone else, flipped to the no-collars, which led Kelly to side with the majority as well. However, the vote went to Max instead of Shireen, as the no-collars felt like he was a bigger overall threat, blindsiding him in a 5-2 vote.
Max, tribe spoken.
Despite the tribe imbalance, Nagarote won the reward challenge, earning them a trip to a turtle sanctuary along with a feast. Shireen used this as an opportunity to bond with the tribe, as she knew she was on the outs. But speaking of on the outs, the blue-collar men were still worried for Kelly that she would be an easy vote for Nagarote, so they thought about throwing the next challenge to protect her, while also taking out Joe, who was a huge social and physical threat that they could take out before the merge. And at the immunity challenge, they went through with this plan, despite Kelly doing her darnest to ruin it.
Kelly thinks she has it. Mike is wrong. Think you're right or wrong?
Wrong.
Yeah, Kelly is wrong. Both wrong. Let's reset and go again. Mike is wrong again. You're shaking your head.
Yeah, I'm wrong.
You're wrong. You are wrong.
I will call out the order, but I'm gonna switch the bottles.
Here we go.
Skills at 1 and 5. 2 bottles in the candelabra.
Gotcha.
Message in a bottle, candelabra, animal skull. And you are right. Nagarote wins immunity.
Despite throwing the challenge to get rid of Joe, Dan and Mike realized that Rodney was getting too close to Hakeem, and they needed to take out Hakeem to ensure Rodney would have no choice but to stay loyal to them come the merge. This left Sierra as the swing vote, and despite not fully trusting the blue collars, she realized it was good for a long-term game to keep them united, and thus Hakeem was blindsided in a 4-3 vote.
6th person voted out. Joaquin, need to bring me your torch. Joaquin, the tribe has spoken.
Mike explained to Rodney after Tribal that they only did this in fear that he would be duped by Hakeem down the road, but Rodney saw right through this and berated Mike for not trusting him. The tribes then merged and celebrated with the merge feast. Kelly reunited with Mike, and in general, the blue collars were strong. However, Rodney reeled in Will to his side for a Final Four deal in the future, so he could eventually get his revenge on Dan and Mike. With the blue collars and no collars aligned, and nobody really knowing where Shireen and Will stood, Carolyn and Tyler realized that they were the swing votes. At the first individual immunity challenge, Joey Mason came out on top, which was big since he was the blue collars' main target. So they switched their votes to Jen to break up her and Holly, but told Will that the vote was Holly since they didn't know if they could fully trust him going against the no collars. Carolyn and Tyler weighed their options, but ultimately, they decided to side with the blue collars, as did Will, as he put his vote on Holly. However, Jen neglected the majority 7 votes with her idol, and the no collars plus Shireen idled out Kelly in a 4-1 vote.
Jen does not count. Still at 1 vote Haley. Kelly. 7th person voted out. Kelly. That's 3. That's enough. Need to bring me your torch.
Savage.
Kelly, the tribe has spoken.
Rodney was convinced that this was Mike's fault for changing the target from Holly to Jen, and thus officially made a Final Four alliance with Will, Tyler, and Carolyn to take out Mike once the no-collar minority alliance was out of the game. At the reward challenge, Joe won his 2nd individual challenge in a row and chose Carolyn, Tyler, Will, and Shireen to join him for a day of zipping and a pizza lunch. Joe would find a clue to the idol, but Tyler saw him find it, to which he told Mike about to build trust. And now having knowledge of a new idol in the game, Mike searched for it and would end up finding it.
What we do, baby. We do the happy dance. We do the happy dance.
At the immunity challenge, Joe would continue his winning streak, winning his 3rd challenge in a row and 2nd straight immunity. The majority alliance learned their lesson and targeted Haley this time instead of Jen. Shireen campaigned for Sierra to flip on Dan, as she was also feeling the misogynistic behavior from him in the same way that Sierra did. And the minority alliance continued to campaign to Tyler and Carolyn that they were on the outs of the alliance. But in the end, the 7-person majority stayed strong, as Haley became the first member of the jury in a 7-4 vote.
Haley, the tribe has spoken.
After losing her closest ally and sick of the nasty personalities on this season, Jen was all but finished mentally with the game. The final 10 were split up into 2 teams of 5 for the reward challenge, with a team of Dan, Mike, Shireen, Sierra, and Tyler winning a chocolate feast. Back at camp, Joe began to sense that Rodney wasn't close to Mike despite being in his alliance, and was also given another life, as Jen told him if she were to win immunity, she would give it to him so she could be voted out instead. Unfortunately for Joe, neither he or Jen would win immunity, as Tyler would be the one to come out on top. With the majority alliance not budging, as they knew they had to take out Joe, Shireen and Joe agreed that they had to vote for Jen to beat the split votes. However, Shireen also knew the majority was getting ready to turn on each other, and wanted to prove herself as a reliable vote going forward. Joe would then make a fake idol and gave it to Mike in exchange for him switching his vote to Jen. But at Tribal, Mike played this idol for Will, which Jeff confirmed was fake, and he and Shireen decided to keep their votes on Joe, sending him to the jury in a 5-4-1 vote.
Joe, tribe has spoken.
Thanks, Jeff.
With the main minority targets gone, Rodney informed his Final Four alliance that now was the time to blindside Mike, but unbeknownst to them, he overheard this conversation, and due to this, he was willing to do anything for an advantage in the game, even if that meant playing dirty.
I'm not gonna trick you guys. Go.
Please.
Go.
Please.
I'm not gonna. Why would I displace trust?
I can't explain it.
But you just bought it for 20 bucks. Nice. Mike, did you get...
He didn't do it.
Wow.
After an auction that would essentially kill the auction forever, absolute chaos unfolded back at camp, leading to one of Survivor's ugliest episodes. Not only did everyone turn on Mike for what he did at the auction, but Will attacked Shireen after she accused him of hiding portions of food from the tribe. Yeah, there's a reason why this cast is called the Dirty 30.
So let's get it on out the open. Y'all want to talk? Let's talk. Swallow spit.
You keep your mouth shut, ride with us, and you'll stay here longer.
Come on.
That's crazy.
Get out of here. You're not gonna sit here and get inside.
Nobody even likes you. I guarantee you there's nobody home at the United States right now that is missing you.
So suddenly, now target number 1, Mike had to win immunity to protect himself and his idol for another 3 days, and he did just that, winning his first of the season. While there was some debate on Dan flipping to the minority alliance, that was never truly in the cards, as the majority split their votes on Jen and Shireen, with Mike and Shireen putting Jen out of her misery, sending her to the jury with her no-caller friends in a 5-3-1 vote.
Jen, the tribe has spoken.
Episode 11 begins with the final 8 being split up into 2 teams of 4, with Carolyn, Dan, Tyler, and Will winning the challenge, earning a trip on a catamaran with burgers and pie. This was perfect for Tyler, Will, and Carolyn, as Mike had told Dan he was on the bottom of the majority at the last tribal, and the 3 did their best to convince Dan that he was solid. Back at camp, Sierra began to realize what a big threat Tyler was, and campaigned to Rodney to take him out, but Rodney didn't buy this, as he was gung-ho on Shireen. At the immunity challenge, a man and woman would win, with Carolyn coming out on top for the females, and Mike winning it for the males, once again putting a foil in the majority's plans. Mike and Shireen began their campaign for Tyler, who they saw as the biggest threat, while Tyler eventually found out that Dan's advantage from the auction was an extra vote. At Tribal, the majority was threatened, as Mike said he was going to play his idol on Shireen, and they're voting for Tyler. This bluff almost worked, as Tyler and Will put their votes on Dan, but in the end, Mike simply couldn't waste his idol on Shireen this early, and thus, she was sent to the jury in a 4-2-2 vote.
I'm so excited for this. In my own way.
Shireen, the tribe has spoken.
Mike was officially all alone now against the other 6. However, he was pleased to see the majority scramble after the vote, as Dan was furious he received 2 votes. At the reward challenge, Mike was able to come from behind to win reward for him, Carolyn, and Sierra, and no one gave up the reward to Rodney, much to his anger, as this was his birthday, and so, he was regulated to doing dishes.
Washing dishes on my birthday.
Mike used his time to bond with Sierra and Carolyn, with Carolyn coming out of this feeling somewhat close to Mike. When the 3 returned, Rodney put on a charade that he was done with Survivor after not being chosen, and threatened to quit, in hopes this would make Mike secure enough to not play his idol at Tribal, but Mike saw right through this. Carolyn would win her 2nd straight immunity, which made Mike vulnerable. However, knowing he would likely play his idol, the majority planned to split the votes on him and Tyler, especially since Mike was making it clear he was targeting Tyler. Tyler first asked for Carolyn to play the idol on him, but then realized if she and Will put their votes on Dan, that would protect him, and take out Dan with his extra vote. But at Tribal, after Mike neglected the majority 4 votes, Will and Carolyn simply couldn't overlook how threatening Tyler was, and stuck with the split vote plan, sending him to the jury in a unanimous 3-0 vote.
Tyler, the tribe has spoken.
After bonding with him on reward and voting out Tyler much to his happiness, Carolyn told Mike about Dan's extra vote to build trust between the 2. At the reward challenge, after the 2 teams of 3 were stuck on the puzzle for over half an hour, Carolyn finally figured it out, winning her, Mike, and Will a helicopter tour of Nicaragua and a surf and turf lunch. Carolyn once again refused to give up her reward to Rodney, and thus, Rodney put Carolyn on his hit list along with Mike. Mike then proposed the final 3 alliance at the reward, and while Carolyn was down, Will was much more hesitant. But in the end, Mike knew he had to win immunity to save himself, and he did just that, winning his 3rd of the season. So with Mike safe, Rodney got the majority to target Carolyn, and lied to Mike, telling him that Dan was a target. Mike initially tried to use this info to work with Dan, but after getting nothing from him, his last chance to work with someone was with Carolyn, telling her that she was in trouble. At Tribal, Dan used his extra vote terribly, as he put 2 votes on Carolyn, who was already getting all the votes, and knowing she was indeed getting those votes, she finally played her idol she found in episode 1, and with her and Mike's votes, Dan was idled out, one of the most satisfying vote-offs in Survivor history.
Carolyn does not count. Woo! Dan, that's 1 vote, Dan. 13th person voted out, the 6th member of the jury. Dan, need to bring me your torch? Dan, tribe has spoken.
It's the finale now, and the finale starts off with the final 5 getting shocked by their loved ones before the reward challenge, with the reward challenge winner getting to spend the day with their loved one, and would earn an advantage for the final 5 immunity challenge. Mike would win, and he and his mom would get the chance to practice the maze part of the challenge for 30 minutes. Unfortunately, his mom really struggled, and felt like she let her son down. But not to worry, as Mike would win regardless, his 4th immunity win of the season.
Mike has it. Mike wins individual immunity for the 4th time, guaranteeing himself a spot in the final 4.
Despite Carolyn and Rodney appearing to be the obvious targets, out of nowhere, Sierra became a possible name, and only made her threat level bigger when she admitted she would be a jury threat at Tribal. I mean, she is a game changer after all. This was all the other 4 needed to hear, and thus, Sierra was voted out unanimously.
Sierra, tribe has spoken.
It's the final immunity challenge now, and as usual, Mike knew he had to win. Can he do the impossible, and pull off 5 must-win immunity challenges?
Mike down to 1 piece left. Is this it? Mike, individual immunity, his 5th, guaranteed a spot at the final 3.
Thank you, Jesus.
With Mike safe, the guys agreed to go to the final 3 together. However, despite recognizing Carolyn would be a bigger jury threat than the guys, Mike felt it would only be right to give her a shot at fire against Rodney, after the 2 had bonded throughout the home stretch of the game. And thus, Mike saved Carolyn, causing her and Rodney to go to fire. And despite it taking over an hour for the 2 to get anything started, Carolyn just edged out Rodney in a fire-making challenge classic.
Yes! There it is. Yes! Rodney becomes the 8th and final member of our jury. All right, Rodney, you need to grab your torch. Rodney, tribe has spoken.
Mike, Will, and Carolyn now against the jury of 8. Despite Mike's great story, the likes of Dan, Rodney, and Tyler were somewhat bitter with him, but he was able to own his game and his mistakes. Combine this with his leadership and unbelievable immunity run, he was crowned the winner of Survivor Worlds Apart, beating Carolyn and Will in a 6-1-1 vote.
The winner of Survivor, Mike.
Good job, buddy.
Go see your family.
Thank you guys so much for watching this retrospective of Survivor Worlds Apart. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and like, and check out my other In Blank Minute videos as well, and let me know in the comments what you think of the season. With all that said, take care everyone, and I'll see you next time.